Niron Magnetics is the manufacturer of a rare earth-free permanent magnet. It's made of iron nitride. That magnet was named the 2025 Innovation of the Year. And amidst supply chain upheaval and Chinese restriction on rare earth exports, the company's poised to take on a major role in the American supply chain. The company's CEO, Jonathan Rowntree, joins me for this episode of Crossing the Valley. Enjoy.
Thousands of companies show up to sell their technology to the U.S. Department of Defense each year, but so few will transition from proof of concept to true production across the Valley of Death. The select few who do, their stories are rarely told. Until now, I'm Noah Sheinbaum, and this is Crossing the Valley.
All right. Jonathan Rowntree, CEO of Niron Magnetics. Jonathan, this conversation, it feels like, could not be any more timely. Rare earth materials, minerals in the news on a daily basis. This past week, by the time this airs, maybe a week or two ago, we had the Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, is out there talking about patents that are commercialized out of labs now needing to be partially owned, or the U.S. By the U.S. government, or the taxpayers needing to have a stake in some of these companies. Niron kind of hits on all of these buckets. So I'm really excited for our conversation. Why don't we start by setting the stage? We have listeners of all kinds on this podcast, some who will be deeply familiar and some for whom this may be the first time they're actually engaging with the topic of rare earth minerals and specifically magnets. Talk to us about why this matters and why is this so important right now to this moment of American exceptionalism.
Yeah, thanks, Noah. It's great to be on your podcast and to talk about this. Absolutely hugely topical right now in the last few months. So why it matters now is really magnets are used in everything. They're the unsung heroes of many different applications. You just don't really know it, right? So your cell phone has 18 different magnets in it. Your car, if you drove to work today, has got 75 different magnet applications in it. It's in airplanes, it's in robots, it's in washing machines, right? Essentially, all modern life, it really runs on devices that are powered and enabled by magnet technology. And so that's why it matters. And the challenge today is that the supply chain of those magnets is really dominated by China. They really control more than 90% of the supply of magnets in the world. And so that's why it matters that the West needs to find alternative solutions here, right, to be able to have a reliable, stable supply of magnets. And that's what Niron's technology enables.
So tell us a little bit about Niron, and maybe we can start with what y'all do, how it came to be, because it's a really interesting concept of this rare earth-free magnet. But talk to us about the product.
Yeah, so at Niron, what we've done is develop the world's most powerful magnet technology. This effort started actually shortly after the first world's rare earth crisis back in 2010 and 11. And Niron was the recipient, at that time it was the University of Minnesota, was a recipient of a grant from ARPA-E, the Advanced Research Projects Agency of the Department of Energy. And that was a grant to research alternatives into rare earth minerals. And Professor John Wong at the university proved that iron nitride, which is Niron's technology, was the world's most powerful material known to science. And so at that point, which is more than 12 years ago now, Genesis was born, the Genesis for Niron, right? Niron was born out of that research. And
Jonathan, what do you mean by most powerful known to science? Like powerful in what sense? That's a big statement.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Magnetism is measured in Tesla. No coincidence the car company is called that, right? Magnets are important for electric vehicles. And iron nitride, our technology, has a basically magnetic theoretical maximum of 2.4 Tesla. Just to put that in perspective, most of the high performance rare earth magnets today are around that 1.4 Tesla. So significantly higher than the magnets that are used today. And our customers are excited about that, about what that can unlock in their applications. More magnetic power means you can make magnets smaller. Yeah, our technology also uses iron and nitrogen, so our plants can be set up anywhere. And so we have the highest magnetic performance, but we also have lower cost inputs, right? It's iron, which is the most recycled material on the planet, and then you have nitrogen, which is almost 80% of the air that we breathe. And so that's why this is a big deal.
So talking to a common person like me with no deep technical expertise, if I think about high powered, is that the horseshoe magnet can pull a paperclip from farther away, can do it faster? Is that, is the
Both.
mental model correct there?
The mental model is correct, right?
Okay.
You can do both, exactly.
Niron commercializes out of DOE funded research at a university lab, the University of Minnesota, as a foundation. Take us through the early, first of all, I'm always super interested in it. I know some of those, I don't know if DOE has this. I know DARPA now has it. I know many of the national labs have commercialization programs where people come in and they want to take some of these technologies, really, they're not capabilities yet. They're early stage technologies. They want to take them to market. They want to see if there's a commercial market for them to defray the development cost to allow them to prosper because they know they can't transfer necessarily right away into broad scale applications. So what was that process like? I know it was a little before you came on the scene with Niron, but talk us through that process of from the lab to the world. What were the mechanisms? How did that happen?
Great question. We knew 12 years ago what we wanted to make. It's iron nitride, but we proved that out by using thin film techniques. So Professor John Pinwall at university laid down a couple atoms thick of iron nitride and measured the magnetic moment of that material. That's when we proved that it was very powerful. But the challenge is you need to scale that. You need to go from a few atoms thick to a big magnet. And so we had to figure out the right technical path to enable us to scale, and not just scale, but scale cost effectively. Magnets that are produced today, rare earth magnets, are produced at very competitive pricing. And so we needed to make sure that we could scale this in the right way. And so that was the first few years, is really figuring out that scale up path. I say we really figured that out in 2017. And then since then, we've gone and scaled that in our commercial pilot facility, which is in Minneapolis. We secured a Department of Energy scale-up grant that enabled us to fit out that pilot plan, allowed us to attract more private equity to develop the technology. And so today we've gone from the gram to the ton scale. And we are preparing here next month, actually, to do groundbreaking to bring our first manufacturing plan, break ground on that and bring that into reality. And so excited right now, a lot of work and effort going on to prepare for that and to build that plan and stand it up here over the next 18 to 20 months.
So big news, actual plan, moving into production scale. That is super exciting. We're going to get to all of that. Before we move off of this, on the commercialization piece, you have a professor in a lab early days. What were the first hires to take that from science experiment to nascent fledgling company? Because I think it's interesting for folks to think about, especially people who might be in the sitter world or maybe in the basic research world, thinking about, okay, what is that first? Is it a bigger engineering team? Is it a salesperson? Get this question a lot, is like, who's the first person we really ought to hire? Talk to us about early team composition.
Yeah, it's a great question. So we were very fortunate. Employee number 2 for us is John Larson. John's our chief operating officer today. And he basically was the one that helped build the team. And a year later, we had Frank Johnson, our current chief technology officer, join, who was really the leader in magnetic materials at GE before he joined Niron. And those two together were critical, right? It was like Frank on the CTO side, really the technical capabilities around magnetism and how we do that. And then John's background's in semiconductors, so very good at process control, right? And our processes, iron nitride is difficult to make. It's pretty fickle, right? It doesn't want to make in the phase you want, and then it doesn't want to stay in that phase. And so you have to build a team that makes sense, right? Brings the capabilities you need to be able to scale your product, whatever that may be. And so for us, they were the two key ingredients, I think, which helped then start to build out what we need. Frank providing the technical leadership, John really the operational process control and manufacturing capability to really be able to scale the technology.
Those are some heavy hitters for an early stage company. What do you think attracted them to the team and the mission at that early stage? Probably wasn't the money.
No, it probably wasn't. I think the challenge, right? I think that's one of the things that I think all of us here at Niron really enjoy, a challenge and doing something which is the world needs, right? So we're all very purpose driven. The world needs our technology. We need a way to be able to make magnets more effectively from a supply chain standpoint, more sustainably. And so I think that challenge is what really brought them together. And Frank's background's really interesting. His father was in the steel mills. And he's always wanted to develop a new material. And he's a metallurgist by training, not a magnet. Although he's a magnet expert, the metallurgist is where he came from. I think that's what we all share, is bringing new material to market to solve a massive issue for the world, and then scaling that. And I think we're all driven by wanting to do that and make a difference.
It's so cool. I think about my friends growing up was like, everybody wanted to play baseball for the Yankees, or be a musician or something. And that aspiration of I want to build a new material, I want to bring a new material into the world is so cool. And I think it speaks to the moment that we're in right now, where I hope people like that can be an inspiration to this next generation of builders coming up through the system, whether you're frankly, in elementary or middle school, or just thinking about what your purpose is in life. These are meaningful problems to be solved. There's a real market for it right now. Jonathan, I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about you, because you were not the original founder of the company, but you're a hugely critical piece in this company's phase of growth. So what was your background? How did you come into this story?
Yeah. Thanks for the question. I also love materials, but I'm a 30-year material veteran. So I worked in much larger companies, scaling and commercializing new technology. I love to do that, especially when it's sustainability related. I'm a big outdoorsman. I love the outdoors, want to make sure we protect that. And scaling new technology is tough, right? Especially material technology. Just to give you an idea, Niron's probably raised more than $150 million to develop that technology. That's before we even start building the manufacturing plants. And it takes time. It's tough to do, but it's hugely satisfying when you're successful. And so I'm the privilege to scale a number of technologies that are still out there today across solar, thermal materials that allow really massively higher heat transfer in a number of different applications like data centers. And so I think I learned a lot along the way. I had a few failures along the way. And so it's a joke there that I've got a 30-year apprenticeship to take the CEO role in Niron. So I joined here 2.5 years ago. My background was a perfect fit. I've also played across all the end markets that Niron's in. So consumer electronics, industrial electronics, automotive and defense, really last 10, 12 years, really been running global businesses, serving those different areas. And so it was a great combination of my technical background and scaling with also the understanding the markets and the customers.
Absolutely. I love it. It's a great segue into the conversation around some of the end users in those markets. We've chatted a little bit about how Niron initially went to market and thought about exploring. Do you go consumer first? Do you go defense first? Do you go direct to government? Do you go as a supplier? There's all of these questions, all these considerations that companies in this space face. Talk to us about what the Niron approach looked like, or what the initial approach was, and maybe how you evolved it over time.
Yeah, I think a great question. We're really attacking all end markets simultaneously, right? That's one of the great things about the magnet technology is its use across audio into industrial type motor applications for HVAC, for instance, into robots, electric vehicles, all the way through to defense and wind turbine applications. But what's interesting is that they all have different design cycles, right? The shortest design cycles in consumer electronics for a speaker or an audio device, it's typically 12 to 18 months. Industrial is a little bit longer, a couple of years. Automotive is longer than that, 3 to 5, and then defense and wind turbine are at 5 to 7, right? And so we are actually working across all those end markets. Audio is important for us. Industrial motors are important for us because they will generate first commercial sales, and we probably plant one ramps with. When you look at those other key applications, they're just as important and even more important maybe in terms of EV and wind turbine and defense applications, right? That's really where we want to be servicing the full broad market. So audio and industrial motors is our key focus right now, but we're also, in terms of commercial sales, but we're just as embedded in the design and prototyping in all those other end markets. They're critical for us as we continue to grow. And so what this gives for us is we build plant 1, which is a 1,500-ton plant, and then plant 2, which is a 10,000-ton plant. We'll be filling that up across all these end markets with different applications to service that. Again, we want to have our technology to have the biggest impact on the world, and the way to do that is to qualify it across all these end market segments.
Totally. I think, especially in the company building the early stages, before you've got product market fit or you've got significant traction on the commercial revenue side, it's this question of prioritization. And I'm just curious to get inside your head, or even some of the company's early discussions around how do you, with scarce resources, and that $150 million rate, but a lot of that on the tech side. So presumably it wasn't to build out a hundreds, if not thousands of person sales force. So with few people,
Yeah.
how have you thought about deploying those scarce resources against where you could get first traction?
Yeah. I think if I think back here, is after we had the technology developed, our first generation material, which we're launching here next year, we focused around markets and fit for that application, right? So that focuses the technical team. Magnet technology, we need to tweak it for these different end markets, and we're doing that right now. But 2 years ago, we weren't. We were just developing one kind of homogeneous technology. It is really important to focus, right? You can't try and do 10 different things at once. And so what we did to do that, ours was the customer lens, right? So where we got customer traction, where we got customers to put skin in the game, whether it's through non-recurring engineering development projects where they're paying for co-development or development, or whether it's investors investing in us, right? Those were the ways that we asked customers to prioritize, show us that you're going to put teams and engineers in place to work with us to develop our technology. And so it was really looking at it from the customer perspective, and that helped guide us on where we're going to place our resources. Because you're right, we don't have a massive team. When I started, we were at 33 people. We're now up to 125 people and growing. But yeah, you have to focus around the markets and the technology that has the biggest impact.
Just to put a bow on the conversation, it was a little bit of go broad, go wide, do a bunch of customer discovery, see who's interested in moving first. And then once you get those that traction, develop the point solution or the specific solution for them. Out of curiosity, what were those customers that were first movers for you?
Yeah, I think you've seen who's invested in us. We have OEMs, automotive OEMs like GM and Stellantis. We have tier ones in automotive like Magna and Allison. They're the first movers in the automotive space. You've seen Samsung has invested in us. They're a key first mover in audio. And so we continue to work with these companies, but there are other ones here that we have collaboration agreements where one of the other things is to move quickly with us, actually to partner to bring our product to market as quickly as possible. And so there are other customers that we don't necessarily talk about due to contractual obligations, right? That are moving very quickly here, that want to really be first in these end markets.
Certainly feels, instead of making a statement, let me ask you a question. Have you seen the market change maybe on the defense side and the federal side of things in the last year, not even less than 9 to 12 months, as you mentioned before we started recording here? Tensions have ramped up. We've seen China now restrict the export of rare earth minerals maybe in response to or retaliation to things that we've restricted, and including the export of semiconductors. Has your market changed at all in some of those defense or government use cases?
Yeah, it has. We've seen a step change, not only in interest, but openness to really partner with us to take our technology, build devices with it. And for us, we have a new magnetic material. People want to see, okay, does it do what it says on the tin? And I think we've proven that to many of our customers with the magnet properties. It's an exciting time right now as we're actually building prototypes, right? And not talking about magnet performance, but talking about device performance, right? So motor efficiencies, for instance, audio output levels and decibels, right? It's turned to really talking about how our technology really helps our customers to do something they couldn't do before and make their devices better. And so that has been a step change. We've taken the progress on the commercial side, right, where we're building motors and speakers, and actually used that and demoed that on the defense side. And that's really helped us too, because you're not just seeing the magnet properties, you're seeing the device as well and the performance. And that's really helped us to gain the next level of traction. And so this has really ramped up in the last few months. And the technology for us is at the right place at the right time, right? We've spent 12 years developing it, and there's been some luck here in terms of being ready for this, but we are trying our best here to make full advantage of this as we qualify a technology across a bunch of different applications, including defense.
This is a conversation I want to go a little deeper into, because I think a lot of the defense tech kind of focused companies that, whether we have on this show or in other forums, you hear time and time again, we want to be a prime, or we want to be like the prime for blank. You could argue that language is maybe a little misguided, but it doesn't matter. There's a lot of focus on being the prime, meaning the lead system integrator. We wanted people assembling the whole thing, responsible for bringing all these teams together. Your business model to me seems very different, right? You're not that, sure, maybe you guys say, we want to be a magnets prime. I haven't heard you say that. I haven't read that anywhere. And it's pretty clear that you are a supplier to all of these different kind of end solutions. Your magnets are, as you said, used in everything. They're components of anything electronic and a whole lot more. And so if that's if that's the objective, how do you build a strategy around partnership with these firms where you're one of a basket of potential suppliers? We've seen recently in the news the government taking ownership stake in MP Materials, ownership stake in Intel. The Commerce Secretary saying we're going to be taking more ownership in more companies. How do you think about playing on that field and earning the trust and earning kind of those trusted partnership slots with those lead system integrators or with those endpoint end solution manufacturers?
Yeah, I think for us, our customers value that we're doing something that's different and novel, right? We've innovated out of this problem with rare earths, right? We're not playing the same game. We have developed iron nitride technology. It's the world's most powerful magnet technology. And you can stand a plant up anywhere, right? We're using iron and nitrogen, salts of iron or iron salts, which is a byproduct of steel making. And our source of nitrogen is ammonia, right? Which is used for fertilizer manufacturing. So it's not just the attraction of a secure supply. We're really changing the whole industry here because we're bringing magnets back to America. We're making them in a different way. These magnets were developed here. They've been grown here. And we're changing the way we manufacture them. These are creating high-tech manufacturing jobs in a fully automated process to make magnets. I think customers appreciate not only the security of supply, the high performance allows them to do different things. We're working a lot on the application side now to design magnets into different applications that weren't possible before. And we're also sustainable, right? So magnet making is a volume business, right? If you look at the magnets plants in China, they're all like 8 to 12,000 tons per year. We need to get to that scale. That's what plant 2 will get us to. But once we're at scale, we're fully sustainable. You mentioned the MP Materials deal. I think overall that was good for the defense industry, but it only provides a fraction of the magnets that are going to be needed by the US. So just to put that in perspective, if you look at all the devices and things that are imported into the US, air conditioners, cars, vehicles, robots, systems, speakers, it's around 50,000 tons of volume, right? And so when Niron comes in is we're really able to scale very quickly, cost effectively. Once we're at scale, we have a sustainable technology, right? Because we have highest performance on the lowest cost inputs. And so we can provide a very effective solution for all of those other end market segments, but also including defense. We're working with defense customers because they're taking their limited defense supply of magnets and focusing on key applications and using our material for those other applications where there's a better fit. And that's really how we're approaching this, is we want to have the biggest impact on this and help be one of the solutions here to solve the rare earth crisis that we're in right now.
Absolutely. And it's super important, super timely, as we said at the top. When you talk, I want to get into the mechanics of this a little bit. So when you're building a relationship with, I don't know, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, that'd be a huge prime, but any of these companies, is Jonathan picking up the phone and calling your CEO counterpart at those companies? Is that a bottom-up approach? Is it you have team out at trade shows with booths and exhibition halls, making the case to anybody who happens to walk by? All the above. I'm curious about what strategies have worked for you, specifically because this partnership angle versus like a direct you're not selling the magnet to Joe consumer, right? Hey, buy 5 magnets. You're a supplier who adds immense value in that value chain, but I think we haven't necessarily explored those partnership dynamics as much on this show. So I'd love to dive into how you actually generate those relationships and that trust along the way.
Yeah, I think trust is a big part of this. It is a number of ways to do this. So we're working with OEMs to really around the awareness that there is an alternative to rare earths, right? You don't need to find another rare earth deposit in the West. We have a solution which is a better mousetrap for supplying high performance magnets.
Cold calls, billboards on the highway. Like, how are you
we don't
starting those conversations?
We don't need that because we've done no outbound marketing. It's a unique problem to have. We're managing inbound, and because there's so much interest in our technology and what it can unlock. And so what we're doing is managing that. We have a sales pipeline where one of the first things we do is talk to the customer about the fit in their process. If that makes sense, if they're willing to commit resources to design with our material, then we enter a joint program, right, to look at how they can utilize our magnet technology in their design. And so that's the way we work through and down the process to really prioritize working with customers, and customers that want to go fast and they want to really embed our technology, and they're committing resources to redesign their product, right? And they're already committing resources early on to do that. And that's a big sign for us that they're committed to work with Niron. So that's how we're working through it. Yeah, I am meeting top to top with a number of customers. I think most of the interaction for us is really with tier ones. Those are the companies that are really buying those magnets. And so it's tier ones, not only in automotive and in consumer, but also in defense applications. And where we've had most success is probably on those applications where the value chain is a bit simpler, right? So we're working on a number of programs with tier ones that are in making actuators or making drone motors. That's really where we're focused. And they need a solution, right? An alternative magnet supply. And that's where we're having most success.
What about with the government? Have you had contact with the administration or with any of these departments? Have they reached out to you and had tried to apply for as part of Niron or anything like that?
Yeah, so we are engaged with the administration. We've had very good government support, right? I mentioned the Department of Energy grants that we've received. I'm actually in Washington today, funnily enough. I visit here frequently, and we're engaged across Department of Defense, Department of Energy, and the current administration. And clearly, they're very interested in helping to solve this problem and support companies to do that. Yeah, we're making progress there, and the current administration is very supportive about trying to figure out how we can accelerate getting to scale. And we continue to engage there. We've been very successful working with them, and sure we will be here as we continue to scale our technology.
So you mentioned opening a manufacturing facility, your first to kind of commercial production scale facility. Give us some of the baseball stats on that. What's the size? What are you making? How much are you making? When should it be online? And what's it going to take to move to a second or third facility?
Yeah, so we're bringing online a 1,500-ton facility in central Minnesota. So it's about a 75-minute drive from our current location in Sawtell, just outside St. Cloud. This will be employing up to 175 highly skilled employees. It's a scaling plan to get to full scale. And we're excited to bring that into groundbreaking on that later this fall, and that will be up and running in early 2027. In the meantime, we're also working on Plan 2. This is a 10,000-ton factory. Last week, we closed on the land, so we have 80 acres in Sawtell. We could potentially expand that site to go up to 10,000 tons, but we're also in discussion and considering other states that typically could provide even higher state incentives. Minnesota's not known for its state incentives. Have been very supportive of Niron. We were founded here. We've grown up here. We will do that first step to high volume manufacturing here in Minnesota. But we're also looking at other options. And so I think we're down to 10 states that we're looking at here in North America for our plant 2, including Minnesota. And so we'll continue to evaluate where we want to further scale. And again, that's back to bringing on a world-scale manufacturing plant that can really move the needle on magnet supply. And we're excited about that because customers are now talking to us about looking at where they could build their manufacturing capability. So we almost see our bringing magnets back and making that scale of investment as a catalyst for other customers and to bring their supply chains back to North America. And so exciting time as we talk through that with customers.
That is really cool, especially if it unlocks, it has those knockdown and those ripple effects. That's super exciting for the kind of reindustrialization movement as a whole. What about the capital that enables this, Jonathan? You mentioned the number that y'all have raised thus far. It's a lot of money. I know earliest money in was government grants. What's the stack look like today between venture and just private equity and debt and or even potentially customer funding? You mentioned some of your investors up front. To bring this first facility online, to think about a second, what does that look like from a capital standpoint?
Yeah, obviously that's the key piece that I'm focused on right now is the material scaling and materials. It's capital intensive, right? So this first manufacturing plant in Sawtell is hundreds of millions of investment to bring to reality. We're doing that with a kind of 3 parts to that. We have secured a government 48C tax investment credit. That's a key component to this. And we're also continuing to apply for government grants and support to help scale the technology. So that's the first leg. The second leg then is a loan. So we are finalizing a loan to help us build our first manufacturing plant. That should be papered here in the next few weeks. And the third element then is private equity. We really had a very successful public-private kind of approach here where We've secured government funds that helps to secure private equity, and that private equity helps to secure more government funds. And that's worked very well for us. It's been a very effective way, and really the only way we can scale our technology. And so we plan to continue that. But this three-legged stool of loan, equity, and government support is really what's enabling to scale our technology.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, that blended approach, right? If it's not, you're not just all one thing and they all kind of work together and then one unlocks the other using different kinds of funding for different kinds of tasks, I think is interesting. Something we're going to see more of in this kind of hard tech and certainly defense tech space as the industry continues to grow and mature.
We have a tremendous amount of investor interest in Niron right now. We've raised enough here to start our first manufacturing plant and get going here and groundbreaking in the fall. We do plan to do another, I would say, equity round probably later this year, early next year. And that will help us then bring the rest of plant one and also plant two, hopefully into vision, into sight here as we scale this. Getting to scale is what's key for us to really make an impact.
What do you think are the steps from where you are now to that scale? We backed up a Brinks truck and said, hey, Jonathan, here's, $500 million. Would you just start templating out manufacturing facilities, or what are the things that are preventing you from scaling it, scaling faster?
Yeah, it's those are really, capital obviously is a big one. So if that once that's unlocked, it's really around talent and scaling the process. And so doing that in a thoughtful way where we're doing this in stepwise, right, to de-risk our manufacturing process. We've already done a lot of that in commercial pilot, and then we need to go from the ton scale to the thousands of tons. And so plant one will be in a few phases. We'll have 300 tons first and then a 1,200 ton line. But at that point, we're essentially scaled. That second line will be for a high volume plant. There'll be 8 to 10 of those lines in a high volume plant, right? So it's really a copy and paste approach. At that point, the scale risk is gone. And it's really about building those factories, right? So we're already actually have started discussions in Europe. So Europe, Middle East, and Africa. We need to build a plant there after the two here in the US, and then one in Asia, right? Probably in Southeast Asia. So we're in this kind of country mode selection, right, for plant 3 and plant 4. So an exciting time here is not only we really focused around plant 1, but plant 2 is progressing, and we're even now starting to do the very early work and thinking around plant 3 and plant 4.
Zoom out, because I think interesting to look forward and even getting that first one online 2027, 3 and 4, I imagine probably into the 2030s, maybe even beyond, which is the kind of crazy time scale. When you think about magnets as a category in this market, is Niron, what's going to prevent you from just eating 100% of this market share? Are rare earths gone? Are they dead on arrival once Niron is at scale?
Yeah, so we want to be the leader in magnet technology and innovation, and that's what we're working on. We're the only company that's really pioneering and innovating in the magnetic material space. Obviously, there's working with Western rare earth mines and miners to build that capability in the West, but it's still using rare earth magnets. There's quite a bit of recycling activity, but our goal is to be the number one, be the leader in magnet technology. The world needs to triple the amount of magnets it consumes in the next 3 years, right? This is all driven by electrification. It's driven by the use, and we saw effectively in the Russia-Ukraine conflict that drones are being used, right? So there's this move on drones. There's robots, not only industrial robots, but humanoid robots are coming. Each one of those humanoid robots takes around 40 different motors and actuators to make them work. And then there's data centers for AI, huge amount of cooling needed in fans and also in pumps to move liquids, and all those fans and pumps use magnets. I think the whole development of these different technologies is underpinned by magnet supply. And so magnets will need to triple, if not quadruple, in the next 10 years. There's not enough rare earths to go around. There never was, even before China started to restrict exports. And that's where we come in. We provide the gap, and we have a technology that is the most powerful, that is scalable. We can set up a plant in each region, and that's our goal, right? We talked about 4 plants. That's still only about 30,000 tons of volume. It's still only about 10% of the world's demand in the next few years, right? The opportunity here is large. We want to be the leader in that, and we want to provide our magnet technology to be able to help solve the rare earth crisis that we're in.
It's a bold, ambitious plan. I love it. So let's turn this on its head. If you were not doing this right now, or let's say this differently, John, and you have a good a pretty unique view of this ecosystem of this supply chain, magnets being one slice of it. Give us a little alpha, a little sauce here for some folks who are looking, who may be wanting to move into this manufacturing space, move into the reindustrialization moment, get involved, maybe you're looking to start a company. What are some of the other needs or problems or choke points that you see in the supply chain that need more attention? Or said differently, if you were not leading Niron right now, what's another problem or another company that you would want to be working on?
Yeah, I can't think of another company or place I'd rather be than this one. It takes raw materials, it changes raw materials into magnet technology that wasn't there before. And you take that and then you solve problems with customers and applications, enable them to do something they could never do before. So it truly is enabling and disruptive across not only raw material supply, magnet supply, but even now we're working very closely with customers and applications and what this can unlock. I think if you look at forward for Niron, one of the key things for us is around talent, right? We continue to add great talent to Niron, and this people are what make things happen. And so for us, when you look at the next few years, that advanced manufacturing, we're already using a lot of, I would say, data tools, right? Machine learning to help us accelerate. We already have programs around AI that are helping us to scale more effectively, right? So you can imagine we're at 125 employees right now. In the next 5 years, we need to go to more than 1,000 employees, using different ways to help scale businesses and doing manufacturing in a different way. That's where I think we're focused right now, is this advanced manufacturing, which looks different than how traditional manufacturing is being done here in North America. And we're still defining, even creating what that looks like. But it's an exciting time as we really bring that to reality, where we have really ability to, at some point in the future, to have lights out manufacturing, right? Where we're doing a lot of automation in our processes to make magnets.
Exciting stuff. Let me get you. I got it. You're not going anywhere. But let's make this Jonathan's call for startups. If you had a wish list and you said, "Hey, here's what else we need in this ecosystem," what's a problem that you want to see someone tackle?
Yeah, I think ecosystem has been critical for Niron, right? You can't do this by yourself. You have to create this strong ecosystem of partners. We've been very lucky in that. The University of Minnesota has been great. They just published results, and I think the University of Minnesota was the number 4 university for startup creation this last year. And so that has really helped us. We have a lot of Fortune 500 companies headquartered in Minneapolis that we've drawn a lot of talent from across a variety of different capabilities. So the ecosystem is critical, but the biggest challenge here is capital, right? It's really about continuing to enable and provide capital for companies at their appropriate stage to scale, especially in material development and material technology. The Department of Energy and Department of Defense have been great. We wouldn't be where we're at without their support and help. Now we need the help to continue to scale here and help us provide different pathways, to be it capital or loans, to help us scale our technology. And that's indeed where we're engaged right now here in Washington.
Okay, so I think your answer to the question was you want more investors who are focused on this industry and who might take a look at Niron. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, I think we have a lot of investor interest. It's really about the steps of capital, right? You can't go from the lab to full-scale manufacturing, right? There are several steps along the way, and the way to do that, we found, is combination of the 3 elements I mentioned, right? It's loans, it's the government support, and it's private equity. And so you need the ecosystem. You can't do it with any one of those alone. You need the combination to enable you to get to the next level.
Got it. Okay. All right, Jonathan, if folks are interested in learning more about Niron or maybe joining the team, where should they go?
Yeah, look at our website. We keep that up to date. Then we've got more than 12 postings right now for job openings. We're probably going to add another 50 people here in the next year. So if you're interested, let us know. We're looking for passionate talent that wants to make a difference in the world and scale magnet technology. Yeah, look at our website.
Awesome. And the website is?
NironMagnetics.com.
There it is. NironMagnetics.com. It'll be in the show notes. Thank you, Jonathan, for your time. Best of luck out there. We are looking forward to following your progress. Thanks for joining us.
Great. Thanks, Noah.